Imagine walking into your elementary school. Not like it would be today, but the way it was when you were a kid. The same hallways, the same posters on the wall, the same hum of fluorescent lights above your head. It's like it was yesterday. You remember every corner, every shortcut, where your favorite classroom is, and of course, the quickest path between you and the best snacks. But while you're walking through the halls this time around, something feels deeply wrong. Even if the building was exactly the same, down to the finest detail, it wouldn't be, because it's not in the same time. The exact world that once existed inside that moment is gone. Your teachers and classmates, even that version of you, aren't there anymore. Now apply that to your entire childhood. The hallway in your house you grew up in, the waiting room of the doctor's office, the corridor at the train station. This exact feeling and the mystery behind this unique blend of nostalgia, melancholy, longing, and unease is why a simple, unassuming internet post from 2019 has spiraled into one of the internet's biggest obsessions: liminal spaces. Images of quiet, eerie, seemingly endless spaces that just feel a little bit off. Ones that you've never actually been to, and yet you'd swear you have been to that exact place. From there, this idea was transformed into an urban legend born entirely from the archived boards of 4chan, and it's called the Backrooms. What's the real history of liminality? Is the same phenomena that makes the Backrooms unsettling also behind the eerie quiet of what remains of abandoned places like Chernobyl? Did ancient tales from mythology warn us of the dangers of liminal spaces, and also of doorways to other worlds? And why, at the root of that unsettling liminal feeling, is the knowledge that it's not about the place itself, but realizing that you can't ever go back. Join me as we unravel all this and much more and enter the Codex Legendarium. I'm Shelby Melanson. Okay, where am I? Am I back now? Anyway, welcome to part 2 of our deep dive into liminal spaces, and one of internet culture's biggest mysteries turned urban legends. If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance that you're here because of the new Backrooms movie. If you are, and you're trying to figure out exactly what the heck is going on with the endless rooms full of eerie yellow wallpaper, beige carpet, and fluorescent lighting, you are in the right place. Last week we went through the whole history of where the Backrooms mythos came from, why the uncanny valleyness of liminal spaces freaks us out, and the one and only scientific experiment ever that sought to explain why. So if you missed that one, seriously, go back and watch it. I will be right here when you get back. Seriously, go ahead, pause this video, go check it out. This time around, we're going deeper, diving into how the modern tales of no-clipping into hidden realities actually have ancient roots. The mythological doorways that some believe were portals to other worlds, where space and time are distorted. And the true reason that images of haunting empty spaces stir up such intense nostalgia and unease, plus the reason that the movies don't quite get right. So get ready, because we're about to no-clip into the Backrooms dimension again, right now. One of the best parts to me about this whole investigation was the realization that a 4chan rabbit hole somehow stumbled onto a real psychological phenomena before science did. Shocker there. Remember that scientific study we talked about last week, where 2 psychologists from Cardiff University in Wales figured out that the same uncanny valley effect that makes humanoid robots really, really creep us out is also what happens when we look at liminal spaces, where the world looks normal at a glance, but things are just a little bit off somehow, or that something's missing, or something is there that shouldn't be. Plus that part about how, for public spaces anyway, the creepiness goes up as the number of people goes down. Just like we described in the intro to this video, that part already has a name. and it's called Kenopsia. It's based on the Greek kenosis, or emptiness, and opsia, or seeing, i.e. seeing emptiness. A fun note about this, you're not going to find this word in Webster's dictionary, or Oxford, or any other one for that matter, because a writer named John Koenig came up with it himself, and an entire dictionary. Yeah, you heard that right. His goal is to create an online compendium of invented words, each one tasked with naming an emotion or a feeling that we all experience but don't yet have a name for. Super cool, right? Well, to quote it directly from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, I know that name is amazing! Kenopsia, noun. The eerie, forlorn atmosphere of a place that's usually bustling with people, but is now abandoned and quiet. A school hallway in the evening, an unlit office on a weekend, vacant fairgrounds. An emotional afterimage that makes it seem not just empty, but hyper-empty, with a total population in the negative, who are so conspicuously absent they glow like neon signs. Here's a clip from the dictionary's official video definition as well.
You can sense it when you move out of a house, noticing just how empty a place can feel. Walking through a school hallway in the evening.
Okay, abandoned malls, closed down schools, empty amusement parks, you get the idea. The eerie atmosphere of a place that's usually bustling with people but now completely abandoned, despite obvious signs that people were there, even if just a moment ago. Not surprisingly, this term is often used to describe what happened after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster and the ghost town that now sits next door. While researching for this video, I found a post by one particular Redditor who shared a bunch of photos that they had taken at the site over the course of a few years. They're really cool, and they also capture the feeling of liminality perfectly. Time appears to have stopped there ever since 1986. On a brighter but perhaps no less weird note, there is a place in Florida that, to me personally, gives me almost this exact same eerie feeling. It's the largest age-restricted retirement community in the entire United States, and it's called The Villages, known locally as Florida's friendliest hometown. Now, no disrespect whatsoever to retirement communities, but this place is so uncanny valley that somebody even made a movie about it. Actually, scratch that, 2 movies. I've seen it described online as a cross between a senior citizen Disneyland and the set from the movie The Truman Show. I don't know whether it's the immaculately manicured lawns, people driving around almost exclusively on golf carts, or the fact that the town tries to eliminate reminders of aging by turning off ambulance sirens and using unmarked funeral cars. No, I'm not kidding. But seriously, you can take my word on this, I have been there personally, and it's very creepy. So, here's one more good question for you. In part 1, we established that liminality doesn't have to be physical. It can be psychological. Moments of change in a person's life, whether that's graduating, moving away, growing up. So, if that's true, can a liminal space occupy a place that doesn't physically exist? How many of you have ever played an MMO video game like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, or RuneScape? If you have, you'll know that these worlds function like real-life societies, to the point that in some cases, they've even helped scientists accurately predict human behavior during pandemics on the mass scale. Yes, for those who know, I'm talking about the 2005 Corrupted Blood incident in World of Warcraft, where a virtual plague broke out and in-game player behavior served as an actual model for pandemic response. You don't have to be a gamer to get this point, but I bring all that up to say, just like the real-life societies that saw people vanish, really, when interest in a game dies down and players just stop logging in, the virtual world of the game can become like a liminal ghost town, just like its IRL counterparts. By the way, you don't have to be a gamer to understand this, but seriously, take a look at some of these clips and images and you'll understand why I bring it up. A handful of YouTubers have even made it a mission to explore these vacant game maps in forgotten servers, and the interest in those videos has been huge. Here's one from the channel Bind, and just look at how perfectly liminal these clips from Waydot are. Tell me this clip isn't the epitome of a dead digital world. Besides gaming, other places on the web have kind of gone the way of the dodo as well. Forgotten social networks like MySpace, which used to be the social media hub before even Facebook was, and is now a super niche community for alternative music, for example. The now defunct GeoCities web pages, which worked like digital neighborhoods for related websites. Personal blogs with next to no traffic that will forever be buried at the bottom of search engine results. Old internet forum pages, just like the one that first shared the original Backrooms image. All this to say, for the first time in history, the internet has now created its own kind of haunted, eerily abandoned architecture. These liminal spaces are entirely virtual, and whether or not they should even be called real places that you can actually visit, well, that depends on who you ask, but you can't debate that they're liminal. If you ask me, I think a huge part of the reason why we perceive liminal spaces as unsettling is because they have a certain otherworldliness to them. It's as if we're looking at a snapshot of a world that's slightly distorted, and from some other time that isn't now. Think of this a little bit like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. If you've seen that, I'm sure you have if you watch my videos. Plus, if we're going based on the Backrooms aesthetic, that different time is often somewhere in the mid-90s to early 2000s. But the thing is, people have been noticing places in space-time that look or feel a little off for thousands of years. And the feeling was so strong that they often tried to create artificial boundary lines to prevent those spaces from bleeding into our own realm. Ancient burial sites have long been placed along boundary lines or at crossroads, and this was by design. It was to create separation between the land of the living and that of the dead, and sometimes even to trap or confuse malicious ghosts in order to keep them away from where people actually lived. Heck, ancient Roman law strictly banned people from burying the dead within the city walls, which were the symbolic edge of the city itself, to make sure that spirits couldn't get into town. Likewise, the mazes, and more specifically labyrinths, of the ancient world were seen as physical doorways to other realms, just in the same way that our modern liminal spaces might lead you to believe you could step into the back rooms. Stepping into one of these mazes meant beginning a journey or a spiritual quest, and once you were inside that world, your sense of direction and time would get really distorted really fast. No different than the yellow walls, musty carpet, and maze-like endlessness of the back rooms. Beyond that, there is a metric ton of European folklore all warning travelers about one thing: to stay far, far away from fairy circles, where fairies, shocker, and elves were said to dance. Entering one of them might just transport you to the fairy realm, where inhabitants are a lot less friendly than what you might expect from, say, Tinkerbell. But if you ask me, for the deepest rabbit hole of other dimensional doorways, look no further than the thin places of Celtic tradition. These places were marked by either physical geography or man-made boundary markers, everything from mountains or caves to walls, grave markers, and crossroads. Here, the veil between our world, the mundane world, and the spiritual realm was seen as exceptionally thin. Not only did that make them the perfect place to confer with the divine, but it also meant that, according to legend, if the stars aligned just right, they could work as doorways to other realms. One of the most well-known of these legends is Tir na Nog, a noble warrior who came upon a beautiful young woman with golden hair riding a white horse. He went with her to the land of the young, crossed the threshold to another world riding her steed, and stayed there for 3 years. When he returned to Ireland, 300 years had somehow passed. Keep the premise of this story in mind, because some of its key features repeat so clearly in not only other stories, but across so many stories, that part of me wonders if they're all just versions of the same story that was lost to time way back before records can give us any hints. One of those, and one of my personal favorites, comes from the traditional Scottish ballad Tam Lin. In the story, a woman named Janet visits an enchanted woods, meets a guy, and gets pregnant, yes. That guy turns out to be a knight, who no sooner gets abducted by the fairy queen and taken to fairyland. Janet, obviously distraught, has to wait 7 whole years until on the night of Samhain, Halloween, for the door to the other realm to finally open before she can rescue him. And when she does, she has to hold him tightly as he shapeshifts into a bunch of terrifying forms, including a snake, a bear, a lion, and a red-hot iron, before she can return him to his human form. The first written record of that story comes from the mid-1500s, but it's probably centuries older than that. If you want to check out the story yourself, a pagan folk band I like called Thon did a really great rendition of this story last year. Yet another seriously similar story is Thomas the Rhymer, who also gets taken to Fair Elfland by none other than the fairy queen herself, you guessed it. But unlike Tam Lin, he gets a much better deal out of the whole situation, and gets to ride into the fairy realm atop her milk-white horse and is given the gift of serving her for 7 years. Quote, "Oh, they rade on, and farther on. The steed gade swifter than the wind, until they reached a desert wide, and living land was left behind." For my fellow Lord of the Rings fans, Tolkien talks about this particular story in his essays on fairy stories, and it is a great read. Remember how we talked about Kane Pixels and his found footage Backrooms films on YouTube in last week's Part 1 video? Well, thanks to him, the unnerving hallways of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining have probably been dethroned as the default liminal space horror movie. Let me explain. The Backrooms is essentially an urban legend now, born entirely online, which is rare enough on its own. Then add in the fact that it made the jump to mainstream movie theaters. The only other creepypasta I can think of that did that was, like, Slender Man. Okay, I watched the new Backrooms movie twice. The second time specifically as research for this video. And as a faithful visual rendition of the Backrooms legend, the movie visually got a lot right, especially production design. The scale, the isolation, the never-ending architecture, how disorienting the whole thing is. Visually, there are so many scenes that are almost a one-to-one visual replica of Kane Pixels' original short films on YouTube, like the super narrow passageway towards the end of the film, and this one from the original. The movie's setting is also a nod to the furniture store where the original liminal photo was taken. And also, remember this quote from 4chan that we showed in Part 1 that set the whole stage for the Backrooms lore? Well, spoiler alert, this is essentially the entire plotline of the new movie. Now, full disclosure, obviously, enthusiasm from Gen Z and Kane Pixels' own social media following obviously put a lot of wind in the sails of this movie's release. Though some fans kind of go the other way and say it played things a little too safe, like with the end-of-movie villain and the lack of other variations of the Backrooms designs. In other words, not just the yellow. If you want my 2-sentence film review from someone who went to film school a million years ago, has produced a couple of short films herself, and is really, really into cinematography, photography, and storytelling, for what that's worth to you, here it is. Visually, it was great, but character development and the actual storyline were kind of disjointed and a little bit weak. Unpopular opinion maybe, but that's what I got for you. Honestly, it just struck me as being made by somebody who just really wanted to make a Backrooms movie, which I get it, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Actually, I think the best line of the whole film was right at the end, and did a great job explaining the horror of endless spaces. Plus, is a bit of possible foreshadowing? Who knows? Quote, "There are doors opening everywhere. We don't know why or what's connecting them. They just sort of keep happening. And we don't know how to stop them." Creepy, right? Yeah. All of that said, I think there's one really big thing that the movie, and honestly even a whole lot of the more original 2019 era fan-made lore, just kind of misses the mark on. Hear me out. Many of the later liminal space and Backrooms images add in an element that wasn't present in the original, yellow wallpaper type images. Suddenly, instead of an eerie, endless maze that distorts time and space and makes you question what reality you're even in, emptiness and architecture that just feel wrong are suddenly overshadowed by monsters and shadow creatures and jump scares hiding behind every corner. Don't get me wrong, I like a good movie monster, and to each his or her own in terms of horror movies. But personally, I think adding murderous, bloodthirsty entities into the Backrooms world devalues the exact quality that made us resonate with it so deeply in the first place. The feeling of standing on a precipice, the fear of change, and of what's beyond the next corner, the echo of knowing that there are many directions to take, and that no matter which of them you choose, you might not find your way back. That is the horror of the Backrooms, which, funny enough, is the exact same horror, if you will, that we face in life as we walk through it and embrace change and march into the unknown.
It's massive in there.
For the sake of comparison here, a movie that I personally think does liminal spaces exceptionally well is Spirited Away. Not long after we meet protagonist Chihiro, she travels through a threshold, literally a tunnel, that is straight out of the time-shifting, realm-traversing mythology that we talked about earlier. The tunnel symbolizes the physical transition of two things: crossing from the human realm into the spirit world, and moving from childhood to adulthood, which is also the central theme of the entire movie. Immediately after, she and her parents arrive in an abandoned amusement park that has clearly been deserted for years, another obvious liminal nod. From there, so many scenes happen in, get this, transitional spaces like elevators or staircases or on bridges. Every single small detail of this movie emphasizes being in a state of change and of not having arrived at a particular destination yet. And then there's the train scene. Besides being one giant metaphor for the journey to maturity, to adulthood, which is a liminal state in and of itself, as we've already talked about, the physical train itself travels along what to me is the fabric of time and space itself. Think about this. This train travels along an endless plain of open yet calm water, so still that it mirrors the gigantic cloud-filled horizon perfectly, with virtually no land in sight save for a handful of tiny, deserted islands with empty-looking houses on them. The entire scene looks like traveling through limbo, or maybe even just a kind of gentle purgatory, which is exactly what liminality is. It's a quiet state of transition, and it's calm, if albeit kinda unsettling. If this isn't the end-all be-all of liminal spaces, I honestly don't know what is. There are a million tiny, beautiful details in this movie, and I could honestly talk about it for a week, but you get the idea. And yes, the movie does obviously have a monster in No-Face, the character, but he's not lurking around every corner and just causing jump scares all the time. He's just there. In some cases, he's just straight up sitting beside Chihiro. And also, considering he represents things like loneliness, abandonment, and the lack of a sense of self, which are among the biggest emotions most of us face when we're teenagers heading towards adulthood, the fact that he's sitting beside her, those emotions are sitting beside her, makes perfect sense. Maybe that's the real truth of why liminal spaces hit us so hard. Because day to day, so much of modern life feels like a threshold, and it can be exciting or anxiety-inducing depending on who you ask. Career changes, family changes, life milestones, or maybe even lack thereof, getting older, technology and the modern landscape changing at breakneck speed. The liminal aesthetic not only mirrors our modern existence, but it reminds us of a space that was slower and simpler. When you're a kid, time moves slower and every day is just a little bit of an adventure, if for no other reason than you haven't seen or experienced that much of the world yet. So there's a lot of new stuff. This next part is just my take, but I think the mix of nostalgia and innate unease that comes from liminal space images, or at least part of it, is a little bit misunderstood. Besides just being a fun creepypasta horror story, liminal spaces are places that we all remember, that we've all somehow been to, and yet they're now moments locked away in the past that we can't access anymore. And because we know that, we long for them. Maybe we miss the comfort of those places or the familiarity of the people that we knew would be there at that time, and the meaning that came from all of that. Things that were once our whole world, but that aren't there anymore. There are so many edits and posts that try to capture this feeling, and these are some of my favorites that I totally admit hit me right in the feels no matter how many times I see them. As for the uneasy half of the feeling, there is a particular sense in knowing that a place still lives on somewhere that you're just forever cut off from, either because it's in some other time space or just because it now lives in your own memory. Or, in this case, maybe the collective memory of an entire generation or an entire society. Because much as you might wish to go back on some level, you also know that you shouldn't. That world belongs to an earlier version of you. In the same way that places have changed and people have moved on, so have you. And that slice of a world that you miss isn't where current you is supposed to be. So maybe the true unease of liminal spaces isn't the fear of an endless maze or a monster waiting in ambush, or even the buzzing fluorescent lights and yellow wallpaper. Maybe it comes from missing a place in time that you know you can never truly get back to. And even if you did, if somehow you time traveled through dimensions or no-clipped into a different reality, you'd get the feeling once you were there that you were somewhere that you shouldn't be, a place that you, now, doesn't belong. But what do you think? Have you ever felt Kenopsia? And are mythology's doorways to other worlds really just echoes of our modern liminal spaces? Did you watch the Backrooms movie? And if so, what did you think of it? What did it get right, and what do you think it missed the mark on, if anything? I would love to hear your thoughts all about this in the comments, and if you have an idea for something you'd like to see a future episode on, let me know. I read all of them. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into mysteries, myths, culture, and science, please take just a second to like and share this video, hit the hype button, and if you want to see more, subscribe. It really, really helps get the word out about the show. Until next time, stay curious and stay legendary. And also, real quick before you go, YouTube thinks you will like this video next, so you might want to check it out. Thank you.